have an incredible depth of flavor, and you can really tailor it to your taste as far as the amount of heat you want, and the just different flavors and nuances. So we're going to be using dried chilies for the enchilada sauce. And I usually make the enchilada sauce first because you can make it even a day or 2 or 3 days ahead and put it in a jar and keep it in your refrigerator. And it works out really well. Now this sauce is quite potent. It's pretty spicy, and it doesn't have a lot of tomato in it. But if you want to kind of tone it down a little bit, you can add some tomato sauce, and that also gives you more volume in sauce. So that's something to keep in mind. You can kind of use it as a base sauce, if you will, for making like a more mild enchilada sauce, or even like a mole enchilada sauce by adding a little chocolate, some nuts, some ground nuts and seeds, and some spices such as cinnamon, and you'll have a really beautiful mole. So you can think of this, if it's seems too spicy for you, you know, you can think of it as a base. But anyway, so I have 3 tablespoons of neutral oil in here. So a neutral oil just doesn't carry flavor along with it. It's like a canola oil, safflower oil, grapeseed oil, avocado oil. These are all neutral oils. And then I have half an onion, which I diced up, and a couple teaspoons, and really just a couple cloves of garlic is what I usually end up doing. And I put that stuff into the hot oil, and I cook it a couple minutes until it's kind of translucent. And you just want to stir it a bit. And while that stuff is sizzling away, let's have a look at our chilies. Sorry, I'm moving them out of your view. I'm like, let me grab this. So for tonight's enchilada sauce, I got a hold of some pasillas and some New Mexicos and some anchos, and these are for the mild side of things. And then for the spicy side, I grabbed some chipotles. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to handle these guys. So here we're actually sauteing. We're putting the chili peppers into the hot oil to kind of soften them up, and then we're going to add some broth on top of that to continue to soften. Another technique when you're working with dry chili peppers is just to let them soak in hot water and for like 15-20 minutes, and that's another way you can get them soft enough to blend up for sauces and all kinds of applications. And the chili pepper, the dried chili pepper, is a real cornerstone of Mexican cuisine, and they're really neat because you can get so many complex flavors out of these guys, and you can mix and match to complement flavors. So here I have my handy dandy, I'll get my handy dandy compost bowl here. And so the dried chilies are going to have seeds in there. Now, if you want a super spicy sauce, leave the seeds in. But for this, you're probably just going to want to start at least by taking most of the seeds out. I'll let a few drop in there for fun and just because it happens. But generally, you want to de-seed these guys. So there we go. There's one of the pasillas. Now, the pasilla is a mild pepper, right? And then the New Mexico here is a beautiful color. So the chili peppers come in a wide range of colors, dried chilies. And generally, you can, the smaller the pepper, the more potent it will be. When you think of like those little Thai chilies, or they're really, the little bird's eye chilies are really spicy, right? And they're tiny. And same thing here, we have the chipotles, which is a dried jalapeno, dried and smoked. And these have a lovely smoky flavor, and they're kind of medium hot, and they can get pretty spicy. So what I'm doing is I just tear up the peppers after I seed them and put them in the pot. Here's another New Mexico. So the New Mexico has kind of a cherry undertone, and you'll get like fruit. You can get fruit. You can get like chocolate. You can get earthy tastes, all kinds of stuff. And what's neat is a lot of with the smoked peppers, like the ancho here. And this is my only ancho, so I'm going to use it. This is a nice big one. And this is a poblano, so you can kind of see that poblano shape there. This guy is smoky, it's smoked, and it's nice and mild. Other favorites for the enchilada sauce, like guajillo is a great pepper to have around, as are arbol chili. Arbol chilies are a nice one for something like this. So we're just tearing those up, popping them in there. And you always want to wash your hands after handling the chili. And I'm not able to wash my hands during this class, so I have to remember to wash my hands right after class, or I'll be probably have fire eyeballs. It looks like we have a question.
Ruby would like to know which chili gives it the bright red color.
Ooh, all right. So Ruby is asking which chili gives it the bright red color, and you know it's really it would be the bright red chili. So these guys, this is the New Mexico, and it has a nice red color. But yeah, it's sort of the combination. I think even the darker chilies, the range of colors is really great. Like with these dried chilies, anywhere from orange, to red, to dark red, to purple, to blackish, and we're kind of getting a range here. And then here's these little chipotles. So these guys are kind of hard to get into once in a while, but that's not too bad. Yeah, and so I'm feeling the heat. If you had smell-o-vision, your eyes might be watering as well, which is a good thing, right? So I've got like 6 mild chilies in here and 2 spicy chilies, medium, medium, mild to medium, and kind of spicy. And then I've got the onion and the garlic. And so we're looking to just kind of soften the chilies in the oil first. So I just want to give them a little mix, and then just like a minute on that medium heat. And did we have a question? All right. So you can see here's all these seeds, and I'm just going to keep those with my compost. And the chilies are softened now. So now is when we add our vegetable stock. So you want 3 cups, and just pour that right on. And so a container like this is 4 cups, so you'll have a cup left over. And then you're just going to bring this to a simmer and cover it and cook it for about 15 minutes, or however long it takes to get those chilies nice and soft. And I did a little batch beforehand. So I've got that here. And you can see there's Ruby, there's that really nice, everything kind of turned bright. And you can see it's already got a really great red color. And it smells great already. So now I've got my assortment of additions here. I've got tomato paste. So this is a 1/4 cup of tomato paste, like one of those little cans, 4 ounces. So we're going to add that in. And then we've got some oregano, and oregano is originally from the Mediterranean, and it first grew in Greece, and then it made its way over to the New World, the Americas and Meso America, right, Mexico, and it grows really well there, and it made its way into the cuisine like in a major way. You find a lot of oregano in Mexican cuisine. I've got some smoked paprika, get a little extra smoke flavor in there. And then I have the cumin, and we're going to put that in, a little dried cumin. Okay, so I'm going to bring this back up to heat, and we're going to give it a whiz utilizing the in immersion blender. Yes, a question.
Could you use this sauce in other dishes was one question. The other question was, could you save the seeds and plant them?
Oh, okay. One question is, can you use the sauce in other dishes? And yeah, this is a nice spicy chili sauce. And as I mentioned, you could use this almost as a base to create like a mole, a milder version of this sauce, where you just take like a can of plain tomato sauce and drop it in there, and then you'd have more volume, and it would be milder, a little sweeter with the tomatoes. But yeah, you could, once you make this sauce and taste it, you can find it would be great with tacos. This would be a good sauce to actually braise meat in for like a taco kind of, or pulled meat kind of deal. Or vegetables. Jackfruit's a really good vegetarian alternative to like a pulled pork. And yeah, you can work this into all kinds of stuff. It's a nice sauce to have on hand. As far as planting the seeds from the dried chilies, geez, I really don't know. I think we will do a quick research on that and get back to you. But I'd imagine that would work. Yeah. Maybe not the smoked ones. That's the only thing I can think of. But otherwise, it's a dried chili, and I tried to. I got a few starts last year. I planted some chili seeds actually, but they weren't from a pod. They were from a pet. And did we get an answer on that?
Yeah, so no on the smoked, but the other ones, yes.
Okay.
You can put them on a paper towel. Yes, you can sprout and plant as long as they
Okay. Yeah, so apparently, yes, you can sprout and plant these seeds, put them on a wet paper towel and get them germinating. So that's great. That's a ton of chili plants, right? But not the smoked ones, as I suspected, because the heat would affect that, right? Okay, so here we go. We have our nice soft, you can see the chili skin is soft there, or the outside of the chili. And we're going to go ahead and give it a whiz with this deal. What I'm going to do is bring this over here. And whiz it up. So you could do this with a blender. You could do this with a Cuisinart. These immersion blenders are really neat for stuff like this, and even soups and things like that, because you can just do it right in the pot. So if I wanted to continue cooking this, add more additions, I could do it easily in the pot. And now you got an enchilada sauce. So nice and easy, right? Yeah, the question.
So if you're doing it in a blender, you need to be careful with the pot.
The question is, if using a blender, should you be careful if it's hot? And yes, the answer is yes. Please be careful. And one thing is to get that lid on really well when you're blending a hot liquid, and even use a towel and kind of put your hand on top to make sure that lid stays there and hot liquid doesn't shoot out. all over the place, which is never fun. So there you have the sauce, and it's quite lovely. Now, for the next trick, we'll do the filling. So once you've got your sauce done, then you have, you can set that aside. And like I mentioned, you could do it a couple days in advance. And now we're going to do some filling. So I've already started just for the sake of the time of the class. And what I have here is a cup of onion. It's approximately half an onion. Like when I'm doing this recipe, I'll usually just grab one nice big onion, cut it in half, use half for my enchilada sauce and half for my filling. Now enchilada, by the way, the word just means simply to coat with chilies. So you can see how that sauce is coating the tortillas. And enchiladas originated in Mexico and during the Aztec era. And the original enchiladas were developed by people who lived around the lakes, and they were wrapping fish in tortillas. And and then, of course, tortillas are the perfect vehicle for all kinds of stuff. And that's the beauty of once you get your sauce, and your technique with the enchiladas, you can really fill them with all kinds of stuff. And one of my favorite things is I'll do pretty much this recipe, but I like to add a little roasted diced butternut squash, and that's really nice in a veggie enchilada. Okay, so what I've done here is I've got the garlic, the onions, and some mushrooms that I've chopped up, and I've sauteed all that stuff in a little bit of olive oil until it's nice and soft. And now we're ready to add the spinach. So we have 2 cups of spinach here, and I'm using the frozen spinach, which works really well for this recipe. I'd highly recommend the frozen spinach, but you can use fresh as well. And if you have a ton of spinach or you're growing spinach, this is a great use for it. But what's neat about the frozen is the texture, and it's really that unique frozen spinach texture lends itself really well to the chew and the bite of the enchilada. So here we have our spinach, and if you are using frozen spinach, you're just going to want to thaw it and then really squeeze all the moisture out of it. And that's what I've done here. So I'm going to add the 2 cups. And so 2 cups, as far as the frozen spinach goes, is 2 packets, and it's 2 10-ounce packages of spinach, which works out conveniently, right? And so I have the frozen spinach. And next I've got a cup of cilantro leaves. And so I've just chopped a cup of cilantro leaves here, put those in. And then I have some black beans. And it's a cup of black beans, which is a little less than a can, so I just go for the whole can. I think you can never have too many beans in your life. And it's already looking beautiful. And then we've got a little bit of cotija. And so this is a Mexican cheese. It's a hard cheese, kind of like feta. And feta is, if you can't find the cotija, feta is a great alternative. And this stuff just crumbles really well. And so you just crumble it right in there. And so there's not a lot of salt and pepper, or salt, I should say, in this recipe. And pepper either, because you don't need a whole lot more spice, right? Heat, but you're getting plenty of sodium from like the cotija, and I use the canned beans, which can bring some sodium along. You can of course make fresh beans, and that's a good idea. So there's some salt and pepper in there, and We have a question, yes.
May have answered this, but can you use other beans instead of black? And then the other question was, how long will the sauce keep in the fridge?
So a couple questions. The first one, can you use other beans besides black beans? And yeah, any sort of bean will work. I mean, you know, even if all you have is refried beans, I wouldn't mix it in with this, but you could actually lay the refried beans on your tortilla, and we can talk about that a little bit when we get rolling. But yeah, any sort of bean you like or have on hand, you know, a blend, like there's those 3 bean blends would be kind of neat. Pintos, if you prefer. Yeah, you can use other kinds of beans. And then the other question was, how long will the sauce last in the refrigerator? And, you know, refrigerated, there's not a whole lot to go wrong with that sauce, but, you know, so you've got a week easy on it, and you know, I'll say a week, and you could also freeze the sauce, and then you've got 6 months in the freezer, either in a Ziploc bag or a nice tight Tupperware in the freezer. Okay, so here is our filling, and it's looking great. And like I mentioned, that frozen spinach just has a good texture for this. So we're going to use 1/3 cup per tortilla or per enchilada that we roll. And I'm going to be using these Three Sisters Nixtamal tortillas, and this is a local product that we have at Basics Market. It's a really lovely tortilla, and this place is really neat. It's in Southeast Portland, and they also sell masa. And if you were with us for our last class, we did chilaquiles and fresh tortillas, and you can buy masa from these guys, and they have all kinds of colors too, like purple masa, all sorts of neat stuff. And then you have the dough, and you can just make your own tortillas. Of course, we talked about using, and we did use masa flour for a class. So you can make your own tortillas for this if you would like, and that's always fun and good. Or get some of these nice Three Sisters tortillas. And the nixtamal, of course, just is the processing with the lime to create the soft corn masa. Yes, a question.
Just wanted to find out if they can freeze the sauce.
Right, yeah, you can freeze the sauce, and if you freeze it, you have about 6 months. You put it in like a Ziploc or a tight Tupperware container, and it would be fine in the freezer, yeah. Okay, so for the tortillas, you need to warm them up a little bit with most tortillas, or they're going to want to crack on you. So my favorite method is in oil, and this is controversial around here, but it's pretty traditional where you dip the tortillas in some hot oil and it softens them right away. Of course, you're adding oil to your enchiladas, which I like, and you're adding calories, which I also enjoy. So if you're not into adding extra calories, this might not be the method. Another really neat way to soften your tortillas in a skillet like this is with some of your enchilada sauce. And you can, you know, like I mentioned, you could bulk up that enchilada sauce with maybe a little canned tomato, what have you, and then put it in the pan and then dip your tortillas in that, and that will soften your tortillas. Alternatively, you can put the tortillas in the microwave for a little bit, like a few seconds. I can't remember exactly. I'm still I'm not really good with the microwave, but you know, until they're soft, it's probably, I want to say 10 seconds, 20 seconds, something. But when they soften up, you know, take them out. And if you do the microwave thing, I just put them in a paper towel like that. And then another way is in the oven, put them in some foil. And I have some. and I have this kind of warm oven back there, and that works great. So I just wrap these in foil, and you can see they're very pliable, and no extra oil is added. And then another way is you could do them like on a grill, like over a fire on your, if you have like a gas grill, just kind of run them over the fire. And you get a nice kind of char that way as also. So we have a lot of options. I just wanted to show this technique a little bit because it's kind of neat. And I like the dimension of the oil. So it gives it a richness, which I enjoy. Another thing that you can put in the pan, and you can see how quick that goes too. It just softens them up. Now I put the paper towels down because they're oily, so you want to absorb some of that. Another thing you can use is cream. It is sometimes used for enchiladas to soften the tortillas, cream or milk. And you just put a little layer of cream or milk in your skillet, and you'll get a soft tortilla that way. And it adds richness, but that one's not going to add oil. So if you're kind of trying to keep your oil consumption lower, then that might be a good way to go. And that works really nicely. Okay, so here we go. I think I'm just going to roll several, 6 or so. We'll do a few of these guys from the oil, and then I'll try out my oven tortillas as well. These are really lovely tortillas to work with. They're nice and thick. And in an enchilada, a thick corn tortilla is great because it will hold up to the baking with the sauce. Okay. So speaking of sauce, we've got the sauce we just finished here. And I'm running out of space. So let me grab my enchilada pan. So your enchilada pan is something like this, but it can be anything that you can fit a rolled tortilla in. But this is a handy size, and this is just like a lasagna pan. And to me, enchiladas are kind of like a lasagna. They're a real comfort food for me. And I pretty much ping pong almost weekly between enchiladas, lasagna lately. And they both kind of fill the void and fill my tummy a lot. So they're both great, but they use the same pan too. So like a 13 by 9, I think these are. And so first thing is you're going to put about half a cup of the sauce, enough to coat the bottom of your pan. And we're going to use this whole recipe of sauce on one pan of enchiladas. So you just want to, half a cup will usually coat the pan. If you need to add a little extra, well, that's okay. You can add extra. It's all going into the same spot. Your enchilada, you're coating the tortillas with the enchilada sauce. Yes, we have a question.
Can you make all this in advance and then make it later?
The question is, can you make all this in advance and bake it later? And sure, yeah, that's one really neat thing about enchiladas is you could make them in advance. And one thing, like I actually did make some in advance today, and I was thinking, well, do I want to sauce them, hours before the class or wait till just before I put them in the oven? And I decided to wait to sauce the top. I rolled them and I got it to the point where I had them all in the pan. And then right before I put them in the oven, I finished with the sauce and the cheese that goes on top. So because I didn't want them to get too soggy. So that's something to consider if you make them well in advance, to maybe hold off on the top saucing and just to help those tortillas hold up a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and roll a few. So this recipe works out really well for a 1/3 cup of filling per tortilla. You'll end up with just the right with 12 enchiladas and no filling left over. If you use a 1/3 cup measure and just lay that out and right down the center of your tortilla, and then we're going to roll them up. And so I kind of form it a little bit, form the filling, and then just a nice easy roll. And I put the seam side down and kind of press it into the sauce just gently, enchilar, cover with chili sauce. And you want to do that with 12 tortillas, and they fit nicely in this size pan. You'll find if you do 8 across, and then you can do 2 and 2, so 4 down the side, and it fits just right. And you want them nice and snug in there, and that's what you get. So here's the oven. So these are my no oil that I just put in a warm oven, and I just covered with oil. And you can see they're really workable as well. And we haven't added any calories and any extra oil. So that's a really nice way to go if you're wanting to keep the oil down. And they work just fine. So a couple more here. You can add all kinds of goodies to your filling at this point. This is where I was mentioning, or where someone was asking about other kinds of beans, and sometimes all I have are refried beans, and I want to make enchiladas. So I'll put like just a little layer of refried beans down, and then I'll have like my veggie filling and cheese and so forth, and I'll then put that on top of the refried beans. And the refried beans work kind of neat because they hold everything together really well. Yes, another question.
Would you add cooked chicken or
The question is, can you add cooked chicken or other things, meats, I suppose someone's asking. And yeah, any sort of meat. Enchiladas are a dish that's a great way to use up leftovers. You know, meats, tofu, you know, tempeh, whatever you've got. They're very good. You can kind of season everything and pop them in there. But yeah, chicken, of course, is a classic enchilada filling. Enchiladas are sold as a street food a lot. And originally as a street food, you'd have enchiladas were just the sauce and the tortilla. And that is really delicious also. If you just take a tortilla, warm it up, and dip it in the enchilada sauce, oh man, it's a great snack. So that you could just do that, and you can still call that an enchilada. So just don't even mess around with the filling. Yes, another question.
can you freeze the bits after it's baked?
Someone's asking if you can freeze the enchilada after it's baked, and you could. I don't know. I think that I would recommend, and with most dishes, you really want to freeze before you cook it, and you'll just have a better cook on the other end of the freezing time. But you could, and then if you baked it and then froze it, then you'd have kind of a microwavable enchilada situation, which is handy. Yeah, that would be fine. But really, if you're looking at freezing, you could make these do freeze well. Make up a batch, put them in the freezer, and then pull them out and put them in the oven. And even from frozen, and it'll take a little more time for them to cook because they'll thaw first, maybe add 10, 15 minutes to your cook time. Okay, well, there's 7. You go 8 usually here. You can see you could fit 8, and then 2, 2 and 2. And I'm kind of making a mess now, but 2 and 2 down the side, and then that'll fill up your pan. And just for the sake of our class time, I'm going to go ahead and keep on trucking here. So to finish, you want to get your enchilada sauce over the top and just really work it in. You can kind of get it with, I like to use the back of a spoon or a spatula and kind of get it in between the individual enchiladas a little bit. And you can see we have plenty of sauce to work with here, so in good shape. So here we go. This is about a half a batch that I put together here. So you have your oven preheated, 350 degrees. And then we're going to go ahead and put our cheese. So this is about a 1/3 cup of cheese. I'm using cheddar cheese, and I'm using our own Basics Market brand Lulabelle's cheddar, which is local to us in the Willamette Valley, made from organic milk from our own dairy and our own cows. So it's a really nice fresh cheese you can pick up at Basics Market, Lulabelle's brand. Check it out. This is the sharp cheddar, which is beautiful on enchiladas or any Mexican type dishes. Okay, so these go ahead and you put these in the oven for about 30 minutes. And you want to watch for the cheese to be melted, a little bubble on your sauce, and then they should be heated through. So let's see what we've got after 30 minutes. Well, these guys I left in the warm oven, so they got a little toasty, but just nice and a little bit crisp on top. But underneath, the sauce is still brilliant red. I shouldn't have left them in the warm oven, I guess, but they're beautiful still. Let's see what we get when we plate them up. Well, they're still going to eat. Just they're very nice. Yes, a question.
Could you use cabbage instead of tortillas?
The question is, can you use cabbage instead of tortillas? And my answer would be, yeah. Yes, sure, that sounds pretty neat. Use a big leaf and cut out the center stem and do like a cabbage roll, basically. So then you'd want to kind of steam the cabbage ahead of time a little bit, the leaves, so they're soft. Same sort of deal as with the tortilla, and you just steam them though, and roll them up as you would for a cabbage roll, and that'd be really tasty. I like it. So here we can put some more cilantro on top of our enchiladas. Yes, a question.
What are some serving suggestions, like other food or drink to accompany it?
Oh, so the question is, what are some serving suggestions? So I really like enchiladas with rice. It's super nice. You get, the rice gets on the sauce, or the sauce gets on the rice, however you want to look at it, and it's a very complimentary texture-wise as well. And otherwise, sour cream, cilantro on top. Some sour cream is nice. Some olives on top. Yeah, what I think it's nice. The rice also kind of fills out the meal a little bit. So let's go ahead and try these. One more. They're good. Yes, question.
Another question about what you would serve with it, side dishes or grilled meat or.
Again, another question about what you would serve with the enchilada, and I mean, I must say, you don't really need much else. You know, it's a meal unto itself, and especially with a little bit of rice. You could put like a salad, like the cabbage. Someone mentioned, you know, wrapping it in cabbage, but why not a nice fresh like cabbage salad with kind of a bright vinaigrette or something like that would be good to kind of balance out the heat, something crispy. Some pickled vegetables would be really good on here. Some of the like Mexican pickled vegetables. You could put like it with the enchiladas, you kind of want to counter it's always a balance, right? Between you don't want it too mushy inside, like say with the butternut squash, I like to put that in there, and I've done it a couple ways. And you know, the best way is to cube it up and put it in the oven so you have like a little crispy edge. If you just take a butternut squash and roast it, and then scoop the flesh out and put it in there, it's almost too mushy. It is too mushy for my taste because you get like real soft textures. So for your filling, and that's the deal with the beans as well. It's kind of the whole beans are nice because you get like a different textural experience than if you put like the just refried beans in there in cheese or something. You'll get it's just kind of turns to mush. So what I look for in what to serve with the enchilada is something that might be kind of a counterpoint to the real soft tortilla and semi softer inside innards of the enchilada, if you will. So yeah, you know, really just whatever you like to eat is good. But yeah, I think some bright like vinegary type things, because this is like I mentioned, it's a nice, a delicious but warm sauce. And what you'll find with this sauce is a lot of just depth of flavor. And feel free to play around with the combinations of chili peppers, the dried chili peppers, and look for the notes that you like. You know, you can take it more spicy or more chocolatey or earthy or whatever. But you know, there's a whole lot of chili peppers out there, the dried chili peppers to look at. And Mexican markets are a great place to source dried herbs and dried chilies, and they're often really inexpensive, and you can experiment with different flavor, color, and you can see this has a beautiful like deep red color, and I wish I could share all these enchiladas with you because the flavor is also beautiful. So good. All right, well, that's sort of what I've got for you this time around. Make some enchiladas, get some great Three Sisters Nixtamal tortillas at the Basics Market, and come to some more classes. We have classes coming up next week. We're looking at knife skills, and after that, we're going to be making some really neat porchetta that you can put together at home. Thank you so much for coming to the class this evening, and happy cooking.